Hey everyone, I'm Joe Klemczewski in Contest Prep University here doing a feature interview with Joe Schretzenmaier. I've known Joe for probably going on a year now, and it has been one of the most exciting, fun relationships I feel like I've developed in a long time because when I look at Joe, not only do I love his name, um, I honestly see myself. I see how I got started in the sport, and it's so exciting to see somebody of the next generation pick up that mantle, carry it forward, and do it in a way that I think hits all the right notes in terms of quality and business premise and goals. So, Joe, first of all, thanks for coming on and doing this with me.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
So
It's a pleasure.
I'm gonna give people a little bit of background. Hopefully, I'm introducing you to some new audience. But you were one of the youngest pros ever at 19 years old to win your pro card in men's physique, and now a few years later, you're still in school, doing some work in different areas, and we'll get into that in a second. But you also have your own fitness company, Schredz Fitness. Tell us just a little bit about how you started that and what your goals are for your own brand.
So it basically started when, being as young as I am and just going through like all the information on the internet, just trying to find your way. It gets pretty tough when you are sifting through blogs on blogs of different forums and videos, and you hear so many different things coming from every direction, and you don't know what's right and what's wrong, and you end up just kind of going in circles with training and nutrition because you're just always constantly trying new things, but you never give anything really time to work its magic. So I formed Schredz Fitness for training and nutrition based on the fact to help up and coming bodybuilders kind of sift through and like cut the learning curve in terms of all the information that's out there, because I was blessed at a very young age to turn pro and have worked with many two top coaches and many IFBB pros in very well-known gyms, and just all over, and working with you, all the information that you have. And I just, like, yes, I am young, but I feel like I am very knowledgeable, and I just want to give back because I was so blessed coming up. So, I feel like it's always, deep in our hearts. We always just want to help others.
Well, after my own 25 to 30 years, not only in the industry, but I wouldn't say I was quite I was 20 years old when I competed in my first contest, but I had been lifting weights and was really focused on my own physical transformation by the time I was 11 or 12 years old. So, as a lot of young people, sports got me into it. I didn't really have that background as an early child, wasn't that healthy. So, interestingly, just in this last couple of weeks, I've been developing a new project, and I had to kind of bring out some of those stories and tell people, this is who I am, this is what I do. And going all the way back to that point, our stories, Joe, are just perfectly parallel, because back then, first of all, the internet didn't even exist. So, you're only finding information through bodybuilding magazines, and it's pretty difficult to call those very scientific, especially back then. There just wasn't even this entire field now that we would recognize as exercise science. I mean, I have just dozens and dozens of friends who have PhDs in exercise science or nutrition or biochemistry, and those people are in labs in universities now, driving an entire new era of research. And everybody likes to throw out in these terms, evidence-based and science-based. And I think that's because so recently, just a couple decades ago, it wasn't there. So you having that advantage to have all that information at your fingertips is both a pro and a con in my mind, because you rightly said it's tough to know what's true. Now there are so many voices to listen to. It's difficult to know where to even begin. So tell me some of the influences you had and what led you to what you think are the best practices and principles.
No, absolutely. So um, it's tough to figure out, who to look up to, because you'll find someone on Instagram, you're like, oh, I really like their physique, and then you start following them, and then you might find out like later on that they're not as disciplined as you thought they were, and they're not like maybe the best role model. Maybe they were just blessed genetically. So it really is tough to find those actual role models and people to look up to. But my dad was actually, sorry, it's actually a little emotional, but my dad will literally drop whatever he's doing in order to help me, and he's been a huge role model in terms of putting other people first, and not necessarily first, because I mean you have to take care of yourself in order to help others, because if you're falling apart, you're not going to be much help to others. So, but in terms of making sure that you're not being selfish, he has ingrained that into my head tenfold. And I'm sure, obviously, as you know, and as many of the viewers know, bodybuilding can be a very selfish sport. Just basically because you're focusing on yourself, you're trying to better yourself every single day, every single minute. So he has been a very big influence in terms of giving back and helping others, and not making it all about yourself. So
That's awesome. I have 4 children, all grown, so 18 to 26 years old. And I'm kind of happy that none of them followed me into my career path, because I didn't want them to feel like they had to, or that there was any kind of weird pressure there. So they all 4 do entirely different things. And like you said, as a parent, that's what you do. I was just texting my 18-year-old, this morning about, hey, I need this to help you with your scholarship packets and this and this and this. And, as a parent, that's the kind of principle base that you want to give people. So I recognize, I saw a post that you did, I believe on Father's Day, for your dad. And I thought, man, this is the kind of guy I knew I liked you for a lot of different reasons, but this sealed the deal. So great to hear that you picked your dad right off the bat.
yeah, no, he really has been such a big influence, as well as, I mean, you've been a huge influence as well, just in terms of like the whole business aspect, really helping me with uh, just the whole social media aspect. You get all your certifications, you're like, all right, I'm ready to rock, let's get it. The clients are just going to come flowing through because, I know all the information that I know and what I can offer. So, why wouldn't people come to me? But, you've literally made an entire business out of helping coaches, have that reach, which is, 70% of the game, just getting the clients. So you've helped me a ton with the business aspect. And in terms of, like training and nutrition, just, kind of finding what works for you. Like I used to be very, very high volume, very like Jay Cutler style, kind of taking sets to failure, but not really pushing past failure. Training my one coach at times had me training 7 days a week, which, I've learned lessons along the way, but, I've felt what overtraining feels like. And, I used to, like I said, be like the higher volume. And then I have since cut back, and I would say in the past year and a half have made the most progress I've made in my entire career with more of the Dorian Yates style training. But that's the thing is, you can't tell people, train a certain way. It has to be adaptive and adherence. So like what works for them, what they like, how they like to train. So, some people might respond better to the lower volume, higher frequency, or some people might get along like better with, training 6 days a week and doing a different body part each time. So yeah.
So I remember being your age when Dorian Yates was winning the Olympia for the first time. And so of course I tried that kind of training, and he was a little bit of a disciple of Mike Menser and the heavy duty approach. And of course it had impact because it was different. And our training director, Luke Probst, has a great quote. He'll tell people, the question he's always asked is, what's the best training approach? His answer is, whichever one you're not currently doing. because as soon as there is adaptation, you used that word just a minute ago, Joe, you can't do everything all at one time. All of the variables you need from frequency, duration, intensity, volume, you can't hit, every muscle fiber type, every energy system at one time in one workout. There has to be progressions and flows. And I want to get into exactly what you described in terms of the business side of this, because as somebody in his early 20s, and you're following, I would say parallel paths in terms of what you set out to do academically, but also you have this amazing hobby that's more than a hobby. I mean, now you're a successful pro bodybuilder, pro competitor. And I think there are so many people in their 20s, maybe even in their teens, who need that voice, who need to say, well, I can go out there and I can view and read all this information, but I want to hear it from a guy who's there right now, who's walked that same path, who knows where I'm at. And you're that guy. I mean, that's why I'm so excited to see that you are building a nutrition and fitness practice that can have such good impact on the younger people who really need it the most. That they need those principles and those foundational just lessons about biomechanics and training and nutrition, so they absolutely stay as safe as possible while progressing.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the best things that you've taught me so far was to make every interaction count. So basically meaning, get to the point, like what do you want to offer? So if you're, posting on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever, you want to have something that people can take away from that. I mean, motivational posts and quotes they're great. And like they can people can absolutely take something away from that and be motivated. But in terms of, solid, concrete information, I have since really focused on, okay, people like who would look up to me and how can I help them? So in terms of, younger up and coming bodybuilders, just, sifting through all this information, like what are certain questions that I had, a couple years back or even right now. And it's really helped me, get down to the point where I am trying to just put as much information as I can out there to try to help, but not so much where it's confusing. You know what I mean? Like every it's just like you can look at it and take something away and not be left confused.
Well, let's go through some of that now, because I want people who are watching this to really glean some of that information from you. So as I said, you are in your early to mid 20s, and I believe you're still in Delaware. Is that right?
Correct.
So,
Newark, Delaware.
and that there's kind of a nice bodybuilding history there. I mean, you've had some pretty big names come up in that area, and I think you said that you've been able to train with some of them in a facility.
Yep. Yeah. So I used to I currently train at Retro Fitness in Wilmington, and that's where I also do one-on-one training with my clients. And I used to train at the training center in Newcastle, Delaware, where IFBB Pro Fred Biggie Smalls, and there's a whole entire list of IFBB pros that train there. Ed Paparillo, he placed fifth in I believe, I don't know if it was Chicago, but he placed fifth in his 212 Pro class, which was a huge accomplishment. He killed that. And then, there's an entire huge list of IFBB pros, both male and female, that I have been, just around, and I got to see how they train. I got to see different training styles. But one thing always stayed consistent was intensity. And, that's one thing that it has to be an underlying factor. It's the common denominator is you have to put in as much effort as you can. And, whether, people are training super heavy or, lower volume, focusing more on my muscle connection. I've been around bodybuilders, powerlifters, strongmen, CrossFitters, and, it's so cool to be in that environment as well, because like I said, it's the common denominator. Like, everybody is in there to better themselves, and, it's therapy. They are trying like as hard as they can to be better than they were
Yeah.
yesterday.
That's what keeps me here, man. I'm telling you, when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, starting for the first time, you feel your body change instantly. I mean, you know what it's like to be physically active, and some of us now take it for granted, but through a 20-year career of competition and always grinding for that next level, starting out as an amateur novice and moving into open and then regional shows and national shows and becoming a pro and getting my ass handed to me as a pro, and then going back to the drawing board and learning, okay, how do I beat some people, how do I get in the mid pack, how do I get in the top 5? This is a sport measured in years and decades. And the irony is, you're at this beginning part of yours, and I think with so much wisdom already because of those peer influences, but you've had that early success, and I think even as gifted and hardworking as you are, you're going to see that, okay, now that I'm a pro, that the success isn't going to come quite as quickly. I'm going to have to really work and put in that time in the gym. So what are you after now when you say that you love high intensity work and a little less frequency? Because I totally agree. And it's not just because that was the era that I grew up in. I've seen it over decades with thousands of clients, and so many people get tied up into high volume training, sometimes just bizarre amounts. And some of this gets supported even through, I don't want to call it exercise science as a central part of science, but you can almost make anything sound supported. And you just can't glean everything from a 6 or 12-week study with a handful of subjects. You got to see what happens to the human body over that much time. So what are you finding in terms of having that extra recovery and allowing yourself to get in there and keep that intensity level higher every time you are in the gym? What's that like in comparison?
So when you're training higher volume per session, so I at one point, I was doing sounds insane. I was doing 70 sets of quads for my one workout.
Hmm.
And that was once per week, and I would split up quads, hamstrings, back thickness, back width. I had an arm day, shoulder day, and a chest day. So literally everything was as split up as you could make it. And I had that recovery in between sessions, because I was training each body part once a week. So yes, I was recovering, but my nervous system didn't have time to recover. So, when you're doing that many sets, you think you're going to failure, you think you're pushing as hard as you can. But when you back off and you give your body time to recover, which is literally when muscle is being built, people have this stigma where it's like, oh, I'm not in the gym, I'm going to wither away to nothing. And, after 3-4 days of resting, you're actually probably bigger than you were, when you're balls to the wall in the gym, training, breaking down your muscle. So it's just the way it is. So I picked up, a couple different methods. So right now I'm doing a modified push-pull legs. So it is a little bit higher frequency. So, which I do like because I'm able to do less volume per session. So I'm able to bring that intensity, 1 or 2 top sets per exercise and maybe 4 exercises per muscle group. So it's really not that high volume. I could be doing anywhere from probably like 6 to 10 top sets per body part, and even 10 is pretty high. So when you're in there and you're doing 6 sets per body part, you have to, like, in your head, you're like, I have 6 sets to break down this muscle as much as I can. So it's just the intensity. You think you're training as hard as you can when you're doing higher volume, which, I mean, you really are. You're training as hard as you can, but it's just that next level when you are recovered, you're fresh, you're ready to go. It's like you give the same amount of effort, but the result is so much greater because you are recovered, and
Yeah,
you're
physically you are recovered.
no, absolutely. Yeah. So, when you're training like such high volume, you think you're recovered, but you're really not. You're probably, overtrained, and it's such a shame that, like, and I don't really know where it came from, but I see kids in the gym nowadays, like, it's I they think more is better, which would make sense on paper. Like, yes, like, I do more curls, my arms are gonna get bigger. But it's that fine line of finding how much you are able to recover. And along the way, people started thinking that, you know, 70 sets for quads, is going to make them bigger because I'm doing more sets than the guy who's doing 20 sets is. So why wouldn't my legs be bigger than his? But the reality is that guy doing 20 sets, those 20 sets are probably a lot more intense than the higher volume, simply for the fact that, like, he has less, like, has more energy per set. By the time you get to the end of 70 sets, like, there's just nothing left.
Right.
And, like, how can you recover from that? It gets to the point of diminishing returns. So it is tough to find that fine line, because from going from higher volume to lower volume, you think, oh, I'm doing less, like, I'm going to get smaller, I'm not doing everything I can, like, especially in the sport. It's just like you want every single little advantage, like you said, like being pro, it doesn't come easy. So once you hit that pro stage, you need every little inch, and people are like, well, does it really matter if you get like 6 hours of sleep versus 8? And it's like, well, when you're trying to be the best pro that you can be, and you have to take every little inch that you can. So in terms of recovery and everything, you have to make it up.
Absolutely. And going from your teen years when you were training toward this goal now into your 20s as a business owner and a college student, how has nutrition changed? What was it like back then? We were just in my company forum with all of our coaches. We were just going over this question. Somebody was training like a 16 or 18-year-old, and they were going over weight gainer shakes and stuff like that. And so we had this nice conversation going on. And it took me back to those days. Well, what's it like being in high school where, you don't have the kind of food opportunities and so forth. And so tell me how that path has gone for you in the last few years.
Man, I have a story for you. So my senior year of high school. So, all right. So back up a little bit. So I really got into lifting when I was about 16. So I was like a freshman in high school. And before that, my dad introduced me when I was like 14. And it was like, super lightweight, focusing on form, getting everything down, just kind of going from one thing to the next. Like, this is how you do this is how you do that. But I wasn't allowed to progress in weight yet, according to my dad, because, it was this theory that, you could, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, stop the growth,
Right.
like your growth plates. So it is, I'm not sure what the science says. Like, you can find stuff on either side of it, saying that it does and it doesn't. So I don't really know. But he introduced me to lifting when I was like 14, kind of did a little bit stuff here and there, more just like did a crap load of crunches and push-ups, and some like lacrosse training, just, agility stuff. So then when I was about 16, me and my buddy used to walk to Planet Fitness every day after school. We would walk from our high school, and we would go to the gym, and then we would get picked up by our parents from the gym instead of taking the bus home. So we really got into it when I was about 16, and that's when I really started noticing, I saw like my first bicep vein. I was I was set. I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. So then we just both kind of fell in love with it, and we were constantly pushing each other, and it was just awesome. It was therapy. It was something you can't really explain. You just fall in love with it. So my senior year, it was right at the end of summer. So I would do like a little cut each summer, just to, I would probably end up around like 175, maybe like 170 like just cut back on food a little bit, and maybe like throw in some cardio. Like I didn't know a whole lot, but just like, you know, get the abs showing for the summer and going to the beach and stuff. So I was right at the end of the summer. I go to McDonald's with my buddy, and because he loved McDonald's. I hated fast food. It just wasn't my thing, you know. And uh, some people love it, some people hate it. I just wasn't a huge fan. But at McDonald's they had this deal. I forget what it was, but it was like $5 for like 4 Big Macs, like 20 nuggets, 2 large fries, like something crazy. Like it filled up like 2 whole trays. And he was like, yo, like you gotta start bulking, like you gotta get as big as you can this year. I'm like, you know what, like you're right, I'm gonna do it. So I absolutely demolished the McDonald's, and then from that point on, it was like the start of my bulk. I was like, I just want to see how big I can get, you know. I just want to be like the biggest dude in my school, like. And you know, big to me was the scale. You know, I didn't really care at the time. I didn't care if I was putting on fat. I was just like, I just want to see how big I can get, because I was playing lacrosse at the time too, so that kind of kept me in good shape. You know, I was running a lot, so I didn't get too fat. I was fluffy. What I would do is I would pack my lunch, and I would actually pack like, you know, chicken, like a vegetable, and like some like snacks or something like that. But then I would also pack in my bag, I would have like 4 peanut butter and jellies that I would eat in between classes, like walking to class. I would have I would like go to the cafeteria and get like literally, even when I was like so stuffed, like in the morning, like I would eat breakfast. I would eat like 5 eggs, bacon, and toast with peanut butter that my mom would make me. Love you, Mom. And then I would literally go like an hour later, once I got to school, I would go and get like 2 bagels, um, maybe even like some cereal. I wasn't, I would do like Pop Tarts every now and then, but like I was literally just like, even if I wasn't hungry, I was just like eating as much as I could. And that was followed up when I got home with a half gallon of chocolate milk. I would eat whatever my mom made for dinner. And then right before bed, you know, those like 3 to 4 serving bags of pasta, like the frozen pasta that you just like heat up on the stove. Every single night religiously, I would eat like the entire 3 serving bag of pasta before bed.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got up, my highest weight in high school, I got up to like 193. And I was like so happy. I was like, I never thought I would, because before that, the winter before, I tried to bulk, and like I was so hyped when I passed 180. I was like, yeah, I'm huge. And then you know, so 193 for me, being like the heaviest I'd ever been by 13 pounds, you know, was a huge step for me. And like all my lifts were going up, you know, I was getting strong. I was like feeling good. And then I got to college. My nutrition definitely changed. You know, well, I had access to like a cafeteria, like literally whenever I wanted. So I would go in between class, and I would honestly go for like the bodybuilding foods. Like even when I would go out to eat with like my parents, like I love salmon. So, you know, I was a salmon and rice guy. Maybe a burger here and there, but I was never one for like, you know, like getting ribs or pizza or like anything like too out there. You know, I always just liked eating clean because I felt better.
Mm-hmm.
So got to college, I would eat turkey burgers. I would get like chicken and rice with like a salad. They had like a little sandwich shop. I would get like turkey and honey mustard. Oh man, I I love honey mustard, but
Same
you
here.
know,
That's funny.
yeah, looking back, you know, my nutrition was good it was good, wasn't great, um, for where I was, but then, you know, I at the time was like more focusing on strength because we had a depth chart for lacrosse. So I was like, I just want the highest bench, the highest squat, the highest deadlift, most push-ups, pull-ups, and the fastest mile. So that was my goal at the time. So in order to reach that goal, I was like, okay, I have to stay lean enough to have the fastest mile, but I also have to like balance that with enough carbs in order to have the biggest lifts, because I need energy in the gym. So it was like I started like kind of messing with that a little bit and like, seeing what worked better, like eating a little bit more before I work out, and then like running in the morning before I would eat anything. So it kind of turned into, fasted cardio with like big pre-workout and post-workout meals and, hardcore training. And I like at the time that training was like bodybuilding training, but we had like CrossFit and we would have like practice at 6 a.m. So I would do like an hour lifting session in the morning, have practice, go home, eat, go to class, nap for like 3 hours after class, and then get some homework done. And then I would go to the gym again for the second time, and I would train bodybuilding style just because I loved training for size. Like even at the time, it wouldn't really benefit me, but I just liked being, one of the biggest kids. So it always just kind of appealed to me. But then realized, playing lacrosse in college was great, but I need something different. Like I reached my goal. It was like, okay, I want to play college lacrosse. I did that. Now what? I'm not going to play after college, so I want to focus more on school. So I transferred and took a semester off after I transferred. So then in that time, I was like, well, I'm still so competitive. Like, what can I do? I know I love lifting, so it's either MMA or bodybuilding. Because my uncle.
So before that point, you did not have your sights set on bodybuilding as a sport. It was just all
I
about
never
stronger.
ever
Oh,
thought I would
nice.
step on a stage.
Wow. I did not see that coming. I thought this was kind of a career trajectory for you all along.
It wasn't. It was a very big switch. It was, I always thought it was like cool. Like I thought Arnold and like all those guys, like I was like, holy crap, like that's so cool. And then I would see these guys on Instagram like shredded, and I'm like, why can't I look like that when I, do my like summer shred where I would do like cardio twice a week, like, on the bike for 20 minutes or something and like eat a little bit less. I was like, why can't I get shredded? But it was like taking it to that extreme. I was like, how do you do that? Like I want to do that. And then I saw, MMA fighters like in crazy condition shape and obviously bodybuilders. And my mom was like, yeah, you're not doing MMA because you have had 4 concussions from lacrosse. So I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So bodybuilding it was. And I went to my uncle, who used to be an NPC judge and former bodybuilder himself, who I believe made it to nationals, but he never earned his pro card. And yeah, he used to be a judge. I went to him. I was like, hey, my mom's not letting me do MMA, so I want to start bodybuilding. Like, what do I do? And he was like, well, first off, you need a coach. And like that was the first thing that he said to me. And to this day, like that was the best advice anybody had ever given me.
It's still such a unique thing to me because, growing up, that didn't exist for me. And even as a pro, that didn't exist. And it wasn't until, I don't know if you know this whole story, but I was already writing for some of the top fitness magazines. And it was the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, when I was actually trading articles. I was writing for a magazine publisher who would give me ads. And in my company, we were doing certain things that worked out. And then one particular weekend, I didn't have anything, that I needed. So over the weekend, I just made something up. Everybody has their friends that they're helping and that kind of thing in the gym. So remember, this is late 90s. So I thought, well, I don't know, I've got a PhD in nutrition and I'm a pro and I write articles about peaking, all this stuff. And a lot of my concepts, I was turning the industry on its head and I was creating this audience because it was very, very unique information. So I just put together this little ad about being a contest prep coach. And that's only 20 years ago. And that was the beginning of the entire coaching industry for our sport. Like I said, there were always, somebody that, there's somebody in your gym, a personal trainer, another bodybuilder who would kind of take you under your wing and give you some advice. But as an actual occupation, kind of a branch of personal training and adding the nutrition coaching. So when I hear stories like that, it's amazing to me. Still a little weird that it's just like kind of a normal thing, just like a golfer has a swing coach or a caddy. It's like, yeah, if you're going to compete, you got to get a coach. So great that your uncle did that and probably gave you a lot of advantages.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. I mean, like literally the biggest advantage that, I could have had, like, going from thinking that I was doing all the right things, eating the right things, to having coaches says, this is how you're going to eat, this is how you're going to train. I'm going to check in and see how it's going. I'm like, all right, done. Like, then you can focus on the nitty gritty because everything else is already taken care of. So in terms of, at first I like had so many questions and like I would just like overload his phone, and I'm sure he got pissed off, but like, he helped me with like a bunch of questions that, like I said, I was like sifting through all this material and all these forums and like, what's the best this, what's the best that, and he really helped me understand that it's all personal, like what your body reacts to. And from the time I started working with him, 5 months later, I turned pro.
Yeah,
Five
that's
months.
amazing.
From never even considering ever stepping on a stage in my underwear to 5 months later turning pro. That's literally the definition of cutting the learning curve, and that's what I want to give back to other people. So they're not, so they can achieve what they want to achieve as fast as possible. Like, it's great when you see, people like every year they come back like a little bit better, maybe not so conditioned, maybe, there's just like something's off. But then, they get a coach and like, bam, you're like, what happened? Like, are they like, did they hop on like drugs or something? It's like, no, they just, dialed it in. They stuck to a plan, which is one of the hardest things to do when you don't have a mentor looking over you, is sticking to one plan, one concept, and just riding it out. Because, I mean, at times, I'm sure, like, as like your clients are like, well, are you sure we should do this? Like, why don't we try this? And you're like, no, trust me. Like,
Yeah, every day.
because it's like, yeah, exactly. You're like, trust me, because in a little bit, we're going to do this and then that, and then it's going to all come together and you're going to see. But like in the moment, people are just like, they want it now. And, they think that every single thing they read is true. And it's
Well,
so
you're describing why I love talking about these things, because there's so many landmines in the way of people with misinformation and so forth. And at that young age, I mean, everybody has a heart for those young kids who are just so trusting and they're willing to do anything. They will break themselves to achieve that goal. But I want to make sure I point out to people that first of all, you had that commitment and tenacity for years. I mean, you were just rigid in terms of what you were willing to make yourself go through, both in the gym and with food intake. I know those stories. I would lift weights in high school. We had a bodybuilding and fitness class. And then, my friend, like you said, and I would go to the YMCA afterwards. If it was a day that we didn't train, it was a kind of a cardio day, then we'd go to the Y afterwards and train. And then I had a small gym in my house and I would train, and just like, you're willing to do anything. But you also have an engineering mind. I mean, that's what you're going to school for. You're an analytical guy. You understand principles and science and structure. And just like as you're going through mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or structural engineering, if you do something wrong, there's a cost. Like, this is not something to mess around with. When you are building your body physiologically, the musculoskeletal system, you started out with your dad, at 12, 14 years old, saying, hey, here's what we can do. Here's what we're not going to do, because we have to respect the laws of physics and biology. I just love that you have that analytical mind at your age to help people go through that process. Like I said, I think you're just going to be an incredibly important voice in this industry for up and coming competitors.
I really appreciate that. That's amazing hearing coming from you.
Well, tell us about your business. Like what kind of clients do you like, and what are your services? Just give us kind of the rundown of what you like to do with your peeps.
No, absolutely. So kind of like I touched on earlier, I really like to help up and coming younger bodybuilders, and not even necessarily young, even people, who always kind of wanted to compete, but just never really knew where to start. And I just really want to help cut that learning curve and, be a mentor, like I had mentors for myself, and how I see it. Like, it really changed my life from thinking I knew one thing to like going around in circles to like being set in a straight line and knowing exactly what I want to do, and having someone guide me to that. So I really think guidance is so important, and accountability. So I just really want to offer that to just people who are looking to compete for their first time. I think it's really important because we didn't even touch on it, but also a big thing is drugs are just so prevalent in the industry nowadays that people join a gym, and even if they're not even thinking about competing, they'll ask, like, what do you take? Like, what can I take to get this and that? And then they start thinking about competing, and it's just like, oh man, like, how much more can I take? And it's just
Huge mistake for a young person. It really
absolutely.
is.
And then, yeah, and then you're stuck with it the rest of your life, and everything's all messed up. But
That's one of the greatest things I'm happy about in my life. I mean, and even when I was your age and younger, there were people our age, taking stuff at the time, and I don't know, something about it scared me. I didn't go that route, and luckily, I found some drug-free organizations because I started competing in the NPC, and as a young natural guy, I wasn't doing well. So I was able to win my WNBF pro card and have a career there. And, just like as I've talked to my own children about recreational drugs, it's like, hey, there are some cool things out there, and you can experiment with, and some are even healthy if you do it this way. But my gosh, when you're 16, 17, 20 years old, like, don't do that stuff now. Like, don't do it because you feel you have to. And same thing with performance enhancing drugs. Like, you can get into those loops where if you think this is reality, and then, as you perfectly said, Joe, it's just like more. You don't even know if you're going to be doing this in 5 or 10 years. And certainly if you harm your body in that way, your likelihood is probably a lot less. So man, just take your time, don't get into that stuff until you know that may be the route you want to go. And then as we're talking about coaching, find medical and health support. But yeah, I mean, I've always stayed on the drug-free natural side, but obviously I have clients in the IFBB who use things, and it's, always with an air of responsibility. You don't necessarily run into people at a mature age who are doing it in a haphazard way. Like, at that point, they know the risks, they know the rewards, they know what they're doing. When you're 16, 18, 20 years old, it's hard to know where those lines are.
No, absolutely. And I'm so grateful. The first coach I had, I asked him because I at the time, I think like all my friends were taking like SARMs, and I literally had like 2 bottles of like LGD or something, and I was like, maybe I'll wait and like talk to my coach about this, just to see what he says, if he wants to like bulk up before the cut or whatever. And like I asked him, he was like, throw them out or sell them, get rid of them. And I'm like, are you sure? He was like, yeah, like, you don't need it. Like, you really don't need it. Like, you have no idea how capable your body is of achieving extreme conditioning and, vascularity and like all this stuff. And I was like, okay, like, let's do it.
Nice.
And
That's
then,
good.
yeah, but no, like I said, I'm so grateful that he went the drug-free route and didn't push anything on me, because now I want to give back to up and coming bodybuilders who think that they need that, but I just want to show them that they don't. I want to show and help these guys achieve more than they think they can achieve, even without anything helping them like along the way in terms of PEDs. So it's also a big thing, is why I want to help, like, like people who are thinking about competing, because you really do not need PEDs to get you to where you want to get to.
At that age, it's gonna do more harm than good. So, speaking of analytics, one of the things I love about your business model too is that you really are set up to help people in the off season with strength and just programming and progress in general, off season, pre-contest. I was really impressed with everything that you offer. And we're going to put that kind of information in the show notes here so people can contact you. But any last words, if you're sitting across the desk from somebody who says, "Man, Joe, I want to be just like you," what are your first steps for them?
Oh man. Consistency. I mean, everybody says it, it's so cliche, but it really is key, is, find what works for you in terms of training and run with it. Whatever you enjoy. Like, if you want to be a bodybuilder and you enjoy, just lifting, find a plan that, I mean, I can obviously help with my the knowledge that I have. I do full training programs, and every single exercise it's, some people say it's a little much, but literally every single exercise is like a short, like, half paragraph of exactly how to perform it, the tempo, the contraction, the centric, like everything in extreme detail. Whereas, like,
Such
if
an
you had
engineer.
never touched a weight in your entire life, you could perform this exercise optimally and, get the most out of it. Like Arnold literally said, you could go in the gym, do one set, and do more than the guys who are in there for the entire day. And I truly believe that it comes down to, my engineering mind. It's so precise. Like, every rep has to count. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. You could be out, with your family eating. So,
Yeah,
like,
if every rep has a purpose, then that's gonna do it.
no, absolutely. So I would say consistency is 100% key, and finding what works for you. And that also goes for nutrition, finding what foods digest well for you. Seth Fersey has this chicken and rice, and he knows that chicken and rice will digest well with his body. And then from there, you add in like certain foods, and, if your stomach is kind of upset, you feel a little bloated, you're not performing optimally, then, okay, maybe that doesn't agree with me. So it's just finding what works for your body, man. Like, nutrition, training, and then just being consistent with that, like day in, day out. And, obviously, having a coach really helps, with check-ins. It's that accountability. If you have to check in a certain day, you're thinking about that. You know what I mean? You're like, I want to look my best for my next check-in. Like, I want to look better than I did last time. And that often keeps you from going and straying off of your diet, because you're like, I just want to be better than I was last week. So then you start finding yourself, like, you start finding you do things that you wouldn't normally do, like you're getting a little bit more sleep than you did before. You're, cutting out some, like condiments like ketchup or barbecue sauce, and like really like dialing it in. So I just believe accountability can really help someone. And, I would love to offer, my knowledge and, just everything I have to offer.
Absolutely. And like I said, we're gonna have all that information there. So, man, we're gonna have to do this again because this was amazing.
It was
We
great.
could have
Yeah.
gone into so many different areas a lot deeper. So we're definitely gonna do that. But Joe Schretz of Schredz Fitness, man, I appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Joe.
All right, and everybody, thanks for watching, listening. Another feature in Contest Prep University. We'll see you next time.